clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Don't forget, hit us on socials at Subway Sports Talk. That's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's TikTok. I'll throw YouTube out there one more time. Got a nice bunch of new subscribers on YouTube this week. We're all well over 100. Well, maybe not well over 200, but we're over 200 now. Every subscriber matters. Appreciate y'all. Joining me today after the Super Bowl is officially in the books. A wild one, but not exactly an exciting one, but an exciting guest every single time. Cody O, the big COC. Cody O'Connor, what's up, my guy?
What's up, brother? Listen, not the most exciting Super Bowl is right. I've got my Mets hat on because I'm on to baseball. I was on to baseball maybe a quarter into that game last night. NBA, of course, is still right here for us, but unless you're an Eagles fan, that was a snooze fest, and it was never exciting. It was never dramatic, and it feels like that's probably the way you have to beat Mahomes at this point, is if it's going to be close, you should be worried. Eagles never let it get to that point, never took their foot off the gas. Shout out all my buddies, everyone celebrating on Broad Street, going crazy, having fun. Same. Not, I'd be lying if I said I was fully happy for my friends. I'm never happy for my friends to be happy sports life.
No.
But it is what it is. Much deserved. Better team won. No question about it.
Yeah, we have a lot to get into regarding the Super Bowl, regarding NFL at large stuff. We're going to rank quarterbacks in a little bit here. But also on the podcast today, we're going to talk some NBA. Obviously, talk a little bit of New York Knicks, a little bit of post-trade deadline, and we're going to rank our contenders in the NBA right now. And maybe we'll ask Cody a quick little Mets thought at the end of this very podcast as well, because we haven't heard from Cody since Pete Alonso has returned to the New York Mets officially. But on the Super Bowl front, Cody, what was the point where you officially said to yourself, like, all right, it ain't happening, right? Because I think with Mahomes, I had a different level of like, well, let's not say it's over just yet. But then obviously everyone has their breaking point. What was the breaking point for you where, all right, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no shot. This game's over.
Well, I took them live at plus 9.5. And
so did I.
I was going to say, I'm sure I'm not alone. So I had the same thought of like down 17. All right, but just one score, one drive, one play can kind of get them going. I would say the first drive of the first half. The first drive out of half. Yep.
Yeah.
Was when you were like, oh, they really just can't do anything. And Mahomes really just doesn't look comfortable, and the pass rush is getting there. And it's not just as simple as, oh, the Chiefs can flip the switch, which we've seen them do so many times. They were just thoroughly outplayed, out-game planned. And the Eagles' front four was very, very Giants of 2007 reminiscent of that. Four-man rush, no need to bring extra blitzers, getting home, nowhere for Mahomes to step up, and just a completely dominant effort. But that first drive, when they got nothing going, then you were like, oh, this is different, and this one's pretty much over.
Yeah, that defense was on their ass the entire game. It was brutal to watch as a fan because you're thinking like, all right, like maybe some quick game. But then you remember the first play of the game, Mahomes made it look normal, but it was supposed to be a swing pass, but Philly just blew it up, right? And Mahomes very quickly like shifted and got the slant to Juju. And I was like, oh, that was kind of slick. Like, look at Mahomes being Mahomes. That was like the most Mahomesian he looked until later in the game. There was nothing happening positive for that offense. They couldn't run the ball. They were afraid to run the ball in general. 3 carries for Hunt, 3 carries for Pacheco. That's not in the game script to have that few rushing attempts. Obviously, you're down, the script changes, whatever, but they could not get anything going. And I guess I was similar to you. It took until the second half where I was like, all right, one more drive, they might score. And then we're looking at, an 18-point lead and crazier things have happened, right? And you start trying to talk yourself into this being a game because this is the moment that it all leads up to, right? You have 2 weeks off. Thank God Luka Doncic was traded to the Lakers because we didn't have to talk about it for that long. But 2 weeks off to think about this game, to say, oh, well, you can't bet against Mahomes. Oh, the Eagles are better here. The Eagles are better there. The Eagles are better here. But you can't bet against Mahomes and the Chiefs. So it was a weird watching experience for everybody. hardcore fans and casual fans alike, where it's just like, aren't they going to do something? And then they just never had the chance because the Eagles defense was dominant and Jalen Hurts played an amazing game. Didn't even take spectacular runs from Saquon to get that offense going. They were kind of doing as they wish. And of course, the pick six doesn't hurt as well. On the front here now of Chiefs versus Eagles, Cody, did it say more to you about the Eagles and how good they were this year? Or did it say more about the Chiefs and how they were really patching together this great football, this quote unquote great football that they've played this year?
It was more about the Eagles to me and the roster construction that we've all known about and talked about. And it said a lot about Jalen Hurts that you mentioned. I mean, this is now his second Super Bowl, and outside of a fumble, a fluky one at that in the first game, and an interception in this game, he's been damn near perfect, flawless. And, he hasn't always had to do that. And now I think that narrative on him starts to shift of, well, he's just doing it when he has to, and he's okay taking a back seat. And it's now, no, he's just a winner is what he is. And that's all you can say about the guy, wherever you want to have him ranked. But to me, this was all about Philadelphia. The Chiefs maybe weren't what we thought they exactly were, but also, were they not getting hot towards the end of the year? Did it not look like they were starting to kind of put it together and the defense was coming around and they got healthier offensively? And it looked like, all right, here come the Chiefs the last 2 weeks of the regular season that they played serious and the first couple games in the playoffs. And the Eagles just had them on their heels. I don't think the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, or any team in the NFL was beating the Eagles yesterday with the way that they played.
And, I agree with that to an extent, but with the Chiefs side of things, I was one of these guys who, since week, 9, 10, 11 range, I'm like, I will be betting against the Chiefs in the playoffs. I will do it. And I went into that saying, like, I know I'm probably going to get hurt, but I will be betting against the Chiefs because I just don't think they're that good. And then it's so easy to talk yourself into, well, how can you really bet against them when they figure out a way, when they find magic late in games, when they always win these close games? All it took was a team that was better than them in basically every facet, right? Because if you look at the Buffalo Bills, for example, Mahomes and Allen, if you want to call them a wash, go ahead. If you want to call Mahomes a little better, Allen a little better, whatever, I'll call it a wash for the matter of the argument. The Chiefs do have a better defense, right? The Chiefs do have equal to maybe a little bit better weapons. Like, they do have a better coach. Whereas you go to the same thing with the Ravens, or, if you went to some of the other NFC teams, you can say, oh, well, Mahomes is better than this quarterback. Their defense is a little bit better than their defense. That just wasn't the case in the Eagles game. Eagles defensive backs, defensive line, their linebackers, their offensive line, their running back, their wide receivers, every single piece except quarterback and coach is better. And that must just be what it takes, right? Maybe Mahomes and Reed are able to mask the downfalls or shortcomings of the Chiefs when you only outplay them in one or two facets. But the Eagles outplayed them in 5 facets. And that's really just what it comes down to. And I give us some credit, Cody, because if I'm not mistaken, you and I were on this very podcast starting in week 12 when we started doing the Contender Circle. And we were constantly saying the Eagles are in this. The Eagles are on the inner circle. And we talked about how the AFC had more teams at the top with the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. And then the NFC, we were thinking, well, the Lions are clearly there. And you and I were very early and steadfast saying, no, the Eagles are in this too. In fact, later on in the year, I'm pretty sure we put the Eagles in above the Lions before the playoffs even started.
Yep, we did. Because of injury to the Lions and a couple of things, but the Eagles had it rolling at that point too. Yep. Yeah,
so it's not a shock. It doesn't not make sense. The only thing that doesn't make sense is how the Eagles continuously operate with drama around them, with a coach who people wanted to fire in September, with a quarterback who people didn't fully trust ever and didn't really put close to that top 5 conversation going into this year, and with a wide receiver who's complaining every other week, right? Like, all these things that were negative and were noise and were whatever, after this win, you hear Sirianni and you hear Hurts and you hear their ownership, you hear their general manager, and you're like, wow, This organization absolutely was pushing in the right direction the entire time. And all this crap that we were talking about and was in the media and whatever, maybe it was partially true, partially here, partially there, whatever. But at the end of the day, that organization knows exactly what they're trying to do. They are trying to dominate up front, and then they added some premier talent when they had the chance, and A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley and, some other defensive players. It sounds so simple, but what they do now, which has been proven for a few years, Cody, seems like if you don't have Patrick Mahomes, this is what must be done. And it's just it's easier said than done, I should say.
Yeah, it's just as simple as hitting on every single draft pick, essentially. And if you do make a mistake, being able to kind of double up on that position and cover it up with a different guy or a different player. And they organizationally seem aligned. Howie Roseman is I think he's largely got to be considered the best in the business. And I was having this conversation where I was saying how, like, when Sirianni gets discredited, or even Jalen Hurts to a different extent, all it's really is us saying, well, it's the roster around that have made each of those guys what we think that they are, because that's how good Howie's done, where you had a hard time judging Jalen Hurts because everything around him was so perfect. But what Eagles fans missed in all that was the compliment to their team, which ultimately that's your team. That's what you should want to hear anyway, is that your team is built as well as a team could possibly be built, which made it hard to judge Sirianni, hard to judge Jalen Hurts. Now I think it's a little easier. You add the hardware, it's kind of hard to discredit them in any way. But that's all I was trying to say whenever I said those types of things, was that's what their roster is. And they built it just perfectly. They hit on guys. They took the high-end talent. They saw a guy in like a Jalen Carter, and we were like, I know he's got the off the field, but you know what he also has? Enormous potential. And they take him, and they take the Georgia product and the Bama product, and they turn him into what they turn him into. But the outside of Jalen Reagor, remember him? That's the only draft pick I can think of that Philly has missed on over the last like 4 or 5 years. That's how impressive they've been.
Yeah, they seem to get it right and seem to put their players in positions to succeed. At the end of the day, that's pretty simple. And also Vic Fangio, another guy who's just been around the block as a defensive coordinator, who seems to just be successful everywhere he goes when he's a DC, and just had this defense cooking. I heard a stat from Ryan Russillo earlier. There's been 6 times in Super Bowl history, Cody, that a defense has blitzed the quarterback 0 times. They're 6-0 in said Super Bowls. And that doesn't mean, just don't blitz and you'll win, right? Obviously not. It means that these teams who are, or we've known this since Brady, right? Since the Giants beat Brady, these teams that are able to get pressure with 4 without sending extra people, that's the ticket against the best quarterbacks. Because now you're rushing a dude who doesn't have number advantages in the secondary. And that's obviously impossible to just be like, all right, teams, go ahead.
Right.
Do that, right? Like, you can't recreate it, but they clearly had the personnel. And this one has to sting for New York fans of all varieties, because not only do you have Saquon Barkley, out there being one of the best running backs of all time for the Eagles, you also have Mekhi Becton starting in a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Huff, Bryce Huff.
I think so. Brandon, I had in my head something like that.
I think it's Bryce, whatever. Bryce Huff, who didn't even really play for the Eagles, but was one of their marquee acquisitions in the offseason from the Jets when the Eagles got rid of Hassan Reddick, and they still had this incredibly dominant defensive line, right? So, like, the Jets and Giants fans are there just like, this is horrible. I thought I wanted the Chiefs not to win, so I was kind of low-key rooting for the Eagles a little bit, but this sucks. Like, that was kind of like what it was for us New York fans. Obviously, us all being biased out here, Giants and Jets fans, man, this is the worst Super Bowl I've watched in my life. Like, that's how it felt. Obviously, since like the Giants got dominated in the early 2000s by the Ravens. So yeah, I don't know what else we have to say about this game. I don't know what this means as far as future team building, because obviously we know every time someone wins, it's such a copycat league. But I don't think much is going to change. I do think there will be a little bit of a correction though, Cody, on running backs, because I feel like all running backs who signed this year had pretty outsized impacts. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, even Joe Mixon down in Houston did some nice things. Maybe there's a little more juice for that 26-year-old running back who hits the market. Is that maybe one of the only takeaways about this team building thing?
It's there. I mean, I still believe that you have to be something of a running back away to make that signing. I don't think the Giants should be going out looking for, obviously with Tyrone Tracy. But the point is, if you're not all that close, I still don't think you're paying a running back. But if he's closer to a finishing piece, then maybe you're willing to pay top dollar. You're willing to go a little bit higher than you previously were after what Saquon did and Derrick Henry and Jacobs and Mixon, like you said, all 4 guys in the playoffs, all very impactful.
All guys seem to make a really big impact. So on the quarterback front, though, Cody, I think it's time for us to have this conversation again, where we rank quarterbacks constantly. We do it preseason. We do it after 8 weeks. We do it after 14 weeks. We do it before the playoffs start. And we constantly are doing this ranking of quarterbacks thing. Now that the Super Bowl is done, we have a new quarterback who gets to hold up the Lombardi Trophy, and that's Jalen Hurts. So I think it does, lend it to us now to do this exercise again. So I think we should rank our quarterbacks, because in the world of overreactions, I don't want to overreact, but I think I have a firm list on the quarterback front. Are you ready for this? Do you have anything to question or add before I list my top 5?
No, but speaking of quarterbacks, here's a positive. Eli Manning, kick of destiny, won us all $10. So go Giants.
How you doing? That's what it came down to, a $10 bonus bet?
Yeah, I got $10 for it. But hey, it was a win. And at this point in the season, any win was a win.
It was always Eli. Speaking of a win, I said this to you beforehand, but I'll say it on the pod because it's just funny to me. I placed $310 worth of wagers on the Super Bowl, which for me is like a decent bit of money.
It's important to know how you and I we gamble, how much, like, $300, how many bets that is.
Right. All power to the people who, have a unit of 100, 200, 400, 500, freaking 1,000. God bless you. I hope that you're not ruining yourself financially. I like to bet semi-responsibly and win a little bit of money, but mostly stay alive and have fun, and then win some money here and there, right? Mm-hmm. So I bet 310. That's big for me. After $310 worth of wagers, I won $316.77. I was positive $6.77.
That's parlay money, baby.
Yes. What a massive win. Oh, God. And the bets that I won were stupid. It was like any team to score 30 points. That was a nice win for me. The Mahomes 225 and 2 touchdowns. He hit that with the worthy 50-yarder at the end of the game. AJ Brown anytime. So and on top of it, I bet the Eagles on the podcast picks. I told everybody in my life I was betting the Eagles, and I forgot to freaking actually bet the Eagles in real life. So I'm a loser for that. I would have won $350. But I digress. So on the quarterback front, I'm going to list my top 5 quarterbacks after this Super Bowl. And I'm going to start with number 1. Number 1, Cody, is still Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes,
no doubt about it,
just played really bad in the Super Bowl in front of the most people you could possibly play bad against. And I'm still putting him number 1. I'm sorry. If you're going to overreact and say that Patrick Mahomes is not the best quarterback in the NFL, I don't know what to tell you. He had a bad game. His offensive line had a worse game. They got defeated by a team that was better than them in basically every single facet. He's still the best quarterback in the NFL. Do you have any qualms with that?
Absolutely not. We cannot go from trying to debate whether he's the best quarterback of all time to one game going, I don't even think he's the best quarterback in the NFL currently. Doesn't work like that.
I'm glad we're on the same page there. Number 2, Josh Allen. Josh Allen just won the MVP, rightfully so. If I had a vote, I would have voted for Lamar Jackson, but Josh Allen's case was very, very strong, and he is 100% deserving. I think what he can do from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a throwing standpoint, it's just one notch better than Lamar Jackson, who will be my number 3. And Josh Allen deserves it for the season he just had, for what he's done in the playoffs versus what Lamar's done in the playoffs. It's just a little bit better, but I'm going Mahomes 1, Allen 2, Lamar Jackson will remain number 3 for me. With Lamar Jackson, I know the playoff stuff is rough. I know he hasn't gotten over the hump, but there has been clear signs of progression for Lamar Jackson in his career, and especially in the playoffs. He obviously got knocked out early a couple times. Then he won one game. Then he made it to the conference championship. And then this year he lost to a Bills team. Again, that was really good against quarterback who I have slightly above him. So any qualms yet?
No, I think that's exactly how I would have it. And important to remember some context on Lamar here. He did at the biggest moment lead his team down the field when it mattered, and I think that's what you wanted to see. And he wasn't my favorite throw of his, but he made it that Mark Andrews should catch that ball. So he did what he needed to do, I think, to remain where he is.
All right. So now, number 4, I am sticking with Joe Burrow. To me, Joe Burrow remains as number 4 quarterback. And if you want to jump up and put anyone else in there, go ahead. But to me, this guy is able to move the ball and throw the ball probably better than everybody in the league. I think as a pure passer, Joe Burrow is the best one in the NFL. He puts up stupid numbers. He does amazing things, all without the talent that even sniffs what the Eagles have, the Ravens have, and maybe you can argue defensively the Chiefs have a ton more, but offensively the Bengals have more. So you can make an argument there. But what Joe Burrow does week in, week out, moving the ball, putting up points, continuously putting his team, which is not as good as the other teams, in positions to win, I think he remains at 4. Any qualms?
I'm still in full lockstep with you. And this is where it gets difficult because this is where like an Eagles fan's probably ready to rip their hair out. I'll let you go ahead.
And this is where an Eagle fan who might be pissed right now will at least get this from me. Jalen Hurts is officially locked in to number 5. And you might say that's not enough. Some people might say he's not even that. Some people might still like a Justin Herbert better. Some people might look at a Jared Goff and what he's done in regular seasons and say, look what he's done, that's better. You can make your arguments for CJ Stroud if you want. You can make your arguments for anybody you want. To me, Jalen Hurts has now implanted himself into the top 5, and we should now consider this top 5 a big 5. For a long time, it was Mahomes, and then jump a tier, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, jump a massive tier, and name anyone who you want. Now it's time to put these 5 names together and say these 5 people are the best quarterbacks on the planet. There's no tier jumping. There's no buzzing. There's no BS. It's Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, and Jalen Hurts. He is locked into the tier 1 of quarterbacks in the NFL.
It's funny that we didn't talk about what your list was going to be. You asked me which list I wanted to attack, and I'll attack mine later. This is exactly how I'd have mine written up, verbatim. And it's what makes it really difficult, though, about Jalen Hurts is it's what's around him that makes you wonder, like, hey, you know, if he was switching spots with Josh Allen, I don't think he gets the Bills where they are. But obviously the other argument is, well, Josh can't do any better than what Jalen did, which is just win the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. That's where it gets hairy. That's where you kind of, you know, go with whatever you feel. But my eye test, my gut, I agree with your list completely.
And I think the biggest thing is not even about the order, right? Because if you want to argue that Lamar's better than Josh, I'll hear your argument. If you want to argue that Josh Allen is a snack better than Patrick Mahomes, I might listen to you for a second.
I don't know, Jim.
I might hear you out, right? Like I might even just hear you out. But at this point right now, I am not taking arguments for Jaden Daniels or Justin Herbert or Matthew Stafford.
That next tier is fun, though, isn't it? 6 through 10.
It's a fun tier.
They're different. They're not in this 5. Like, I think we are in agreement there. But when you start to go like Herbert, Jaden, Stafford, you know, whoever the Giants get, he'll immediately be in my top 5. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, Stafford, Jameis, all be top 5. But yeah, that 6 through 10 is pretty fun.
Yeah, and for a long time, that CJ. 5 through 10 has been really fun, right? Where any given week, any given stretch of 4 games, you can put a lot of different people at 5. I think over the course of this year, I could have put Justin Herbert there. I could have put Jaden Daniels there. I could have put CJ Stroud there. Could have put Jalen Hurts there before Dak got hurt and started sucking. You could have put Dak there. There was a lot of talk about who was the 5th best quarterback in the NFL because it wasn't clear. It's clear now. It's over. That conversation about what Jalen Hurts is or what he isn't is now irrelevant because we know exactly what he is and we know what he can do on the biggest stage, which he's done twice now, right? Because he played good enough to win a Super Bowl his first time around. In fact, he played better than good enough his first time around to win a Super Bowl. Now he's done it twice. They just win. I know his team around him is spectacular, but you can't knock him for not making big mistakes, for continuously making big plays, for doing it with his legs and with his arm. I think the question marks are gone for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, agreed. I think what we're saying is the respect we're giving him is putting him firmly in that tier with those other 4 otherworldly quarterbacks. And I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think I agree, right? Because we'll get to August next year, and we'll do this again, and we'll have fun with it. And in the past, it's always been all right. Well, these are the top 4. Put them in whatever order you want, but that's top 4. Then the real conversation starts. It's a top 5. As Kendrick Lamar once said, "Fuck yo, big 3." It's actually a big 5. Did he say that? I don't think so.
I think he did call Drake a pedophile, though. For the old folks who didn't get that last night.
Got a great tidbit from my mother-in-law, and shout out to my mother-in-law. I don't think she listens to the podcast, though she does watch my clips on socials, but this won't make socials, so it's fine. She's calling up my wife before. Oh, there were subliminal messages from Kendrick Lamar during the halftime show last night? Like, oh yeah, like what are you talking about? And I thought she was gonna go with like one of his dancers had like a flag for like a protest. Did you see that? It didn't make TV.
There's a bunch, yeah.
But it hit social, whatever. I thought that's what she was gonna say, and I'm like, oh no, that wasn't really him. That was like the dancer. She's like, yeah, so like some of that stuff was about Drake. I was like, oh yeah, right. Different worlds, different algorithms we got, I guess, right? Because obviously we all knew that. But yeah, that was funny. So I think we're clear on the quarterback situation. Really quick on the halftime show, though, Cody. What did you think? What did you think about the halftime show?
I'm like not the right person to ask because I'm not super up to date with the whole, like I know of the beef, right? I know what's going on. I guess I'll put it this way. I don't think for me that the Super Bowl halftime was the time to be continuing that. Like my performance is not strictly, but a lot about Drake. And it's like another opportunity to continue to throw shade at him. Like it should be, to me, it's a celebration of what's going on, like call it what it is. So I just don't think that was the platform for it, even though I do think it was well performed. And I think in the moment I wasn't like huge on it, even though I was kind of in and out anyway. But as I've watched more and heard more and listened to more and found out more, I've like almost appreciated it more because of how many like little things came together to make it work. So I don't hate it. I didn't hate the craft of it, but I'm not the perfect person to ask.
I think that makes you a good person to ask, though, right? Because in my opinion,
fair.
There's kind of 2 camps from like a larger, very simple perspective. There's hip hop fans who were excited about this and probably liked it, right? And in the subset of that category, some people probably say, you know what? The rap is hard to hit right in that setting, but he did a good job, yada, yada. And then there's some people who just loved it straight up, right? The other camp is people who don't like hip hop, don't care about hip hop, don't know hip hop, whatever it may be. And most of those people were like, this sucks. What's going on? Right? Now, I don't agree with that, but I do understand it. I think that's an important thing. I'm a Kendrick fan. This little album that I switch out every month or so has been a Kendrick album a couple different times, right? I'm a fan. I'm here for it. I was excited for it. I enjoyed it, but I could have called it. If it was on the sports books, if I could have bet my life savings that a bunch of 50, 60, 70-year-olds are like, what is this? I miss Paul McCartney. Like, I would have been a billionaire. You know what I mean? I would have pulled in every dollar I could possibly get and said that there's going to be a ton of people in the older variety or the non-hip hop fan variety and say that this sucks and this is a bad halftime show and yada, yada, yada. So it is what it is. But frankly, from what I've heard from Kendrick Lamar's camp now is that he chose not to play his hits, right? He played nothing from Good Kid, Mad City, which to me is like one of my favorite albums of all time and one of his more well-known albums. He didn't play All Right. He played Be Humble, but he didn't play a couple of his other bigger hits, and he played the more recent stuff. That's never going to get the people going. Name any artist, right? If they played 75% of the stuff of the album that just came out 3 months ago, it's not going to win over everybody. It's just not how music works, right? It takes time. It takes fan bases to grow. So it is what it is. I liked it. I had a good time. But again, I could have bet that there was going to be a lot of people and be like, what's going on with this halftime show? So
it would go the other way, though. If you do next year pull out the Stones, and then Twitter would be a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds being like, who are these old men with walkers and canes on my screen? So like you could get it both ways. But if I got like an old school band performance next year, like I'd be happy about that. I'd probably be pumped depending on who it was.
Yeah, and I think some people were like, "Oh, it should have been Lil Wayne because he's New Orleans or whatever." I get that. Also, very, very public Packers fan, Lil Wayne. So I don't know if that played anything into it. I also thought John Baptiste, who did the national anthem, I don't think people loved his national anthem. I thought it was pretty good, but I'm also a huge John Baptiste fan, so I'm very biased, right? So I don't know. Nonetheless, underwhelming Super Bowl overall. Congrats to the Eagles. Got a few videos from friends just like you on Broad Street last night with everyone going nuts. So happy for those people who had fun last night.
I believe
not that happy.
Was our very own Pat Boyle out on Broad Street, non-Philadelphia fan?
Was he?
I thought I saw some stuff that might have had him there, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, he might be. But speaking of Pat Boyle, he'll come up in just a moment. But Cody, I think that's a pin for the Super Bowl. Really quickly before we jump to NBA, there was some other news, non-Super Bowl related, in the NFL and New York specific this weekend, and that was about Aaron Rodgers. The reports are that he will not be returning to the New York Jets for the next season. My first question is, do you believe the reports? That's my first question.
Like, do I think he's definitely not coming back? That's what I believe. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, do you believe he will not be a New York Jet?
Oh, yeah. That's what I think is happening. I don't know how they move on. I'm so curious to find out what their move is. But as far as Rodgers' time in New York, I think that relationship's way beyond fractured to try and reverse it.
So I'm on the other side of this, Cody.
Oh, spicy. Let me hear it.
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the Jets quarterback next year. I think this is a ploy. I think this is a situation where Aaron Glenn is arriving in New York and stating what he believes firmly, which is, I'm calling the shots. This is not your team anymore. And if you don't want to align with that, we're going to move on from you. And I think what's going to conspire or transpire over the next few weeks and months and et cetera is that they're going to suddenly start to see eye to eye. All of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers is going to start looking like a good soldier, Cody. He's going to start saying, you know what, Aaron Glenn, I see your vision. I understand what you're doing here, and I'm going to be a part of it. Because what we're building here in New York is going to be special. We have the pieces. We have the talent. I have this beautiful house I just bought and built in New Jersey. I want to be the quarterback of the New York Jets, and I'm going to get in line and be a good soldier. I don't believe it yet, Cody. I'm not buying it. I still believe there's a strong chance Aaron Rodgers is the Jets quarterback next year, and I'm not buying the reports that it's officially done and they've officially severed ties. I will not believe it until I see it 100%.
So you're not saying that you think it's a full ploy, but that it's not finalized.
Correct. I do not think it's finalized.
But you think that Aaron Glenn has said this, right? That him and Rodgers had a conversation that led to him saying, then we don't need you back.
Yes. It's very similar to the Luka Doncic situation where...
You call him fat?
But yeah, no, where certain reporters were reporting things about his conditioning and his defense and his weight and things of that nature. I don't think those reporters were lying. I just think they were reporting what they were being told. And I think right now, Aaron Rodgers is being told, if you're not willing to do what we want to do, you're out. And I think the reporters are just doing what they're being told. They're not lying. They're not making something up. I just don't buy it that it's official yet. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is on his way out yet. I think there's not going to be a lot of suitors for Aaron Rodgers. And more importantly, I don't think the Jets have a better plan B than Aaron Rodgers' plan A. And they're going to circle back and say, how about we run this back one more time and we do it together and we do it Aaron Glenn's way and we'll see what happens.
Well, that much I agree with, because I don't know where the heck they could possibly go outside of Aaron Rodgers, because they still got that cap hit. So like they're going to try to sign somebody. you're right in that sense. Like, I'm super skeptical about that part of things of like, okay, but if it's not Rodgers, then who is it, and how is it better? But it's also a heck of a lot to be throwing at Aaron Glenn unless he's the one kind of pulling the strings, and then who knows? I mean, he's either going to look like a genius if this is the case, or he's going to end up like a lot of other New York-based coaches of the last couple of years.
It's all fair, and it's all within question. But to me, the biggest part is that it's all in question. Aaron Glenn very well may be laying down that law that he doesn't want to do it this way. He's not going to let Aaron Rodgers pick his OC and call plays and do whatever he wants to do. But there's a lot of time to come before this decision becomes final. There's a lot of things that have to happen before this decision comes final. And what I think is going to happen is the Jets are going to start talking about Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, and Jordan Travis. What are we doing here? Are we bottoming out? Are we going to suck this year? Do the New York Jets want to suck this year? Does Aaron Glenn want to suck? I know he doesn't, but will he accept the idea of we're probably not competing at the highest level this year and hopefully we get a quarterback next year? I don't think they're going to go for that. I think by the end of this offseason, they're going to miraculously see eye to eye with Aaron Rodgers and do this the right way this time. And I say that with a little emphasis because it's a little sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek. But I truly don't believe there's a better option for the New York Jets in 2025 than Aaron Rodgers as quarterback.
I wholeheartedly agree with that part. So this is good. I haven't heard this anywhere, Pete. I hope you're the first to it, and I hope if it comes true, I get to credit you because it's a good take.
Thank you. And we'll see what happens. I could be very well wrong, and I'm fine being wrong in this scenario because it was reported, right? And I'm just trying to look at the tea leaves here. Jets are going to draft Jackson Dart at 7 and say, all right, that's our guy. When they have a million other needs and they don't even trust this guy, and this guy is, projected somewhere between like 10 and 40. You're going to go Jackson Dart at 7? Come on. The Jets are going to look at the mirror and say, we have no other options.
There are none. Drew Lock?
Nah, yeah, right. Come on. Let's be real here. Let's be real here. All right, Cody O'Connor, Pete Kennedy, right here on Subway Sports Talk. And let's shift some gears over to the NBA and talk about all the happenings since the trade deadline with the New York Knicks as well and what they've been doing, in the past couple weeks. So I kind of want to start. I was going to start with the Knicks and their loss to Boston and everything like that. But Cody, I feel like I didn't give you a fair chance to give any Luka thoughts. Do you have any Luka thoughts for the podcast here before his first game with the Lakers tips off in about 2 hours from our recording?
Well, I'll say this. As a Thunder fan, I was looking at Dallas all year, no matter where they've been, and been like, that's the team I'm probably the most afraid of. Like, when he's back, when they're healthy, when they're right, what they have around. And it's not to say with AD they don't have any chance. That's not the case. They actually do still have a chance. I don't think they have as good of a chance. And now I think the Lakers have a good chance. But then Mark Williams and his physical comes back the way it did. And so now it's hard to figure them. But I'll say this, and I know you guys covered it. It's so simply, it feels rigged for the Lakers and for the NBA standings going down, because how you can not shop that type of a player is irresponsible at best. And if anyone in America had done their job according to that, they'd have been fired right away. It's insane to do, to a point where I actually think somebody behind the scenes was like, hey, we're kind of in the shitter right now. We need some ratings, and the Lakers bring them. We're going to take Luka, and we're going to bring him over to La La Land. Because outside of that, I don't know how you can not open that up to the league when my man, Rudy Gobert, goes for 4 first-rounders. That guy stinks. You get 5 from Mikal Bridges. No disrespect to Mikal Bridges. He's not even in the same stratosphere as Luka Doncic. And you don't get more than a first round. You didn't even get Dalton Connect. You didn't get Austin Reeves. You got next to nothing. Max Christie, who's a fine player. He's not a game changer. He's not like okay, now we got to look at Dallas differently because they got him and AD over here. it's mind blowing to think that could have happened outside of, there's some type of strings being pulled, or somewhere down the line they go, hey Dallas, like we'll take care of you when you're in the lottery, like you're getting the first pick in 2029 because we'll get you on the back end, but we need Luka in LA. For a league that I love, for this to be my thought and take, I don't know how else to explain that little of a return for that guy at that age. Makes zero sense.
Well, with what's come out since then, did you see Mark Cuban say that he tried to call Nico Harrison and be like, don't do this, and it was too late. It was already locked in.
Cuban said a couple years ago that he would have given up one of his wives for Luka.
One of his wives.
Like that. It was something like that.
He would rather divorce his one wife.
Yeah, his current wife, but I don't think it's his first marriage.
Right.
But yes.
No,
so I don't know,
me,
Pete.
And Chris Vernon had this take, so I'm kind of stealing it here, but I think there's something to it. Nico Harrison got too much dip on his chip. Nico Harrison believed that he was the reason the Mavericks made the finals last year. That the strings that he pulled by bringing in Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington and drafting Derek Lively.
Which were some good strings, to give him credit, right?
Very good strings.
Right.
He pulled good strings, for sure. But let's not be mistaken here. They only made the finals because of Luka Doncic, okay? Yeah, the Kyrie thing worked better than a lot of skeptics thought so. The PJ Washington deal, you could be the first one as an Oklahoma City Thunder fan to say he was a massive reason why they beat the Thunder. He shot the lights out for no reason. He played great on defense, too. I know you still have nightmares about it, Cody, as a Thunder fan. Nico Harrison did a great job last year. You don't make it without Luka Doncic. You don't. No world do you make the finals without Luka Doncic if you're the Dallas Mavericks last year. And you don't ever get a chance to draft somebody who makes it to a conference finals and an NBA finals by the time they're freaking 26 years old. It doesn't happen. I mean, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant doesn't even count because he played with another super duper star in Shaquille O'Neal. Like, those players are the only people you could compare Luka Doncic to. That's it. Right? So must be some sort of power trip, some sort of dip on the chip situation with Nico Harrison that he thought, I don't need this generational super duper star. I'm going to build out my style team who plays defense, who's going to make it to the finals. Like, no way, dude. And now I do actually feel bad, mostly for the fans of Dallas. I think a little bit of it is karma for the front office of the Mavericks here. But now AD's out for 4 weeks. Yeah, there'll be a lot of Kyrie Irving games coming up. A lot of Kyrie Irving games. And Cody, I don't know if you saw my take on Kyrie Irving last week. This guy's never been a good number one, ever. One segment of a season with Boston was he a good number one, and there was a really, really good young team around him. Let's not forget. He's not a number one. Even with Anthony Davis, I don't have faith in this team. How, as a Thunder fan, Cody, where did your scare level of the Mavericks go? Because you already stated they were at the top of your list. Where did it go on a scale of 1 to 10, pre-trade, post-trade?
It's not non-existent, but it's nowhere near the threat that I once saw. Like, now it's a sole focus on Denver, LA, because they have Luka. Like literally, like they got Luka, and I go, all right, well, now I am very worried about LA because they have that good of a player. And I don't know. I guess, it's those two at the top. I don't fear Memphis that much. Houston, I just think is too young still. And so when I look down the list, Minnesota I can't discount them because Anthony Edwards is that good. But they're I would say them and Dallas now are probably much closer to one another, where I would have said beforehand, Dallas, Denver at the top, and then the next set of tiers would be with those guys included. So I would take Dallas out of that first tier of contenders and drop them to like the bottom of the second tier of contenders, where it's like, well, if they're healthy and they're all right, I'm not going to sit here and act like they haven't had good success against the Thunder. But like, I don't know that they're even going to see Oklahoma City unless they, get like an 8-1 matchup in round one.
Right. That's their best bet at this point. No, it's out of control. But yeah, I think that's enough on Luka Doncic's front. Well, maybe they'll come back up in our next portion of the conversation when we rank our contenders in the NBA. But first, let's talk about the New York Knicks kind of as a part of this conversation here, and then that'll segue us into the contender conversation. So the New York Knicks played a pretty brutal game on Saturday against the Boston Celtics, where they scratched and clawed in the third quarter, beginning of the fourth, and tried to make it close, and the Celtics just went nuclear and just freaking could not miss and did what they do against the Knicks seemingly all the time and just dominated, right? So the Knicks got blown out the court, and our own Pat Boyle, Cody, our buddy Pat Boyle, those of us watching on YouTube here, you can see the tweet right here, but Pat Boyle tweeted after that game, this hurts to excuse me, this hurts to admit, but I don't live in fantasy land. The Knicks are no closer to being a championship team than they were before the trades of Cat and Bridges. Sorry for the cold, hard truth. They're not even in the same stratosphere as the Boston Celtics. That's our own Cody O'Connor right there. I'm sorry. That's our own Pat Boyle right there.
I'm your own Cody O'Connor right here.
Yeah, and does our own Cody O'Connor feel some similar sentiments to Pat Boyle here after the Celtics shellacking of the Knicks on Saturday?
So this sucks because I've been able to watch a really good portion of Knicks basketball, especially since like the end of December. But I missed both the Lakers and Celtics game. I didn't get to watch a single part of either one. So I find it hard to fully comment on something that I didn't get to watch or see with my own eyes, because maybe you guys saw something that I would have missed by watching or not watching the game. But I will say this. 2 games should not change my opinion, no matter how bad they looked at this point in the season. Yes, they were against really good teams, but it should not fully change what I think the Knicks' ceiling is. So I'll go off what I know. I know that when the Knicks are fully healthy, they have as good of a starting 5 and a 5-man option as any team does in the NBA. I know that their defense came full strides from what we saw early on in the year, which I think both of us said was going to happen, and it did. Because they have really good guys, they just had to work it out together. I understand not wanting to hold your breath on OG Anunoby and Mitch Robinson and some of these guys being healthy, but outside of this little fluky injury, OG has been all healthy this year, and so have the rest of the Knicks, including a guy like Mikal Bridges, who, knock on wood, is like an Iron Man. Jalen Brunson's been healthy. Cat's been overall healthy, and I think he's still working back from that thumb injury. So my long-winded answer is I don't agree with Pat. I don't know if he's too close to it. I don't know if I'm not close enough to it, because sometimes when it's not your team, it's so much easier to be like, no, they are a contender, because it's easier to do. Like I do with the Mets all the time, where I'm looking at like how it can go wrong too often and not enough of, well, these are the ways it can go right. But again, missing those 2 games makes it a little bit more difficult to answer, but those 2 games shouldn't skew my judgment that much. When you have 5 options the way that they do, and a rotation that makes sense, and an identity that they have, and a coach that's been there, and guys who have now really gelled and played together, I don't think that I can sit here and say they're finished, they're cooked, they don't have a chance with this current construction. So I disagree with Pat.
Screw Pat.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But let me play Pat's side of the game here for a little bit, because I think when you watch that Knicks-Celtics game on Saturday night, you saw a few things that were very irksome, because it brought us right back to opening night, where the Celtics just are hitting shot after shot after shot. They hit wide open shots, which are bad defense by the Knicks, and then they hit ridiculous shots that are just ridiculous with good defense, right? Like Peyton Pritchard went nuclear. Jason Tatum went beyond nuclear. Derek White's hitting shots. Al Horford's hitting shots. Everyone's hitting shots for Boston, and it just transported us back to week 1 of the NBA season, where the Knicks were playing 500 or below ball, and we were very nervous as a fan base, right? That's not the case. And I'm not in the business of one game ever changing my outlook on this team at large. The Knicks have another game against the Celtics coming up very soon, right after the All-Star break. They need to compete. They need to show themselves and the Boston Celtics that they are here to play ball, right? And now the Boston Celtics have not been flawless recently. They've lost dumb games. They've lost games to teams they shouldn't lose to. The Celtics know when they're playing the Knicks that they're playing a real deal team, which is why they're on their A game. In that devil's advocate, weird silver lining type of way, it's a weird compliment to the Knicks that you're getting the Celtics A game. That's weirdly important here because that does show to me that the Knicks are in the same stratosphere as the Boston Celtics. They might be at opposite ends of the stratosphere right now, which we'll discuss in a minute when we do our contender list. But I can't overreact to one game. I think what Pat was alluding to in his further tweets and on his show on The Fan this weekend was that the Knicks' three-point defense needs to be a lot better. Their offense needs to be a little more consistent. They can't lose the bench minutes the way they are, and they're not deep enough. And these points are all at least partially valid. For the Knicks to hit their best peak, they need to be getting good contributions from their bench. They need to play better three-point defense, which has been a little bit of a thorn in their side throughout this season. And they need to be healthy, which they weren't. OG Anunoby, especially in that matchup, is massively important. We're looking at Josh Hart trying his ass off to guard Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. That's not the matchup, guys. That's not the one. It's Mikal on one of them and OG on the other one. That's why we have OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges on the New York Knicks right now, to guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's it, right? So if you don't have one of them, that's the strategy. So to that point, I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to say they don't stand a chance. I want to see them compete with the Celtics. I want to see them play a good game against the Celtics. But at the same time, the Knicks also, great game against the Rockets a couple weeks, just last week.
I was just thinking of that game.
Like they're playing a great game against Memphis 2 weeks ago where they freaking dominated Memphis, right? Yeah, they lost to OKC twice, a really hot Memphis Grizzlies team. They lost to OKC twice, sure. They do have Cleveland coming up. You want to see them compete with them. Mm-hmm. But right now with this NBA, it's not a mistake. We're not overanalyzing. We're not being homers to believe the Knicks are in the conversation for this level of play. Where that lies exactly, that's yet to be determined. Let's see how they do against Boston next time, against Cleveland, against Indiana on Tuesday night. All very important games. So, with that being said, Cody, why don't we rank the damn contenders? Why don't we take the NBA at large, Eastern Conference, Western Conference, put them in a pool? I want Cody O'Connor to give me his top 5 contenders right now in the NBA.
Okay, this is tough because I've got 3 in each conference, which I'm not a big math guy,
so
but that have to trim usually means more than 5. So, all right, I got my trimmed. Number 5, just mentioned, the New York Knicks.
Okay.
I think they are the 5th most likely team to win the NBA title. They do have to go through Boston. They're not going to have an easy round 1 matchup, no matter who it is, it seems. The East is one of the it's a top-heavy type of conference, but I guess their second round matchup, no matter what, is going to be tough, which is how it goes anyway. So I got the Knicks at number 5. Oh, this is tough. Number 4, just ahead of them, and Knicks fans are probably going to be clamoring because I know how you guys feel about this team. But I think Cleveland has to get the respect of just above the Knicks at this point in the season.
Okay.
Another team with a legit starting 5, with guys who have stepped up, with closers, with guys who, like Donovan Mitchell, has played a different style this year. Darius Garland, we both know how we feel about him and what he's able to do, to how he contributes to winning. And they make a lot of sense. And the DeAndre Hunter move is a huge addition. Like, it's not a big time make your eyes pop typically, unless you're following NBA pretty closely and you see DeAndre Hunter is a legit weapon off the bench on both sides of the floor. He's a legit 3-and-D guy, and he also can put the ball on the floor. Like, he's not a nothing addition. So number 3, I'm going to say, is Denver right now. I think they are the second best team in the West. They are the team I fear the most, which means the team I've trimmed out is the Lakers. Hint, hint. No shocker there. I don't think Houston is there yet as far as a team who can close out big-time games, especially offensively. And I just don't trust Memphis yet. I don't trust them as a group. And almost similar, and I know how good Ja is. I know the athlete he is. But when I think of truly closing out a game, closing out a playoff game, I don't have them there yet either. But the Joker, the Nuggets, yeah, I believe wholeheartedly that they're going to get good look after good look, and they're going to be more than a tough enough team to get out. So I'm going number 2 because I have 3 Eastern Conference teams. My number 2 is going to be Boston. And I have Oklahoma City above them. Maybe it's my homer pick, or maybe it's the fact that I think the East at the top is a little bit better and more well-rounded than I think the Western Conference is. And plus, Boston hasn't had just this dominant run. And it's usually how it goes after a title. So it's not like obviously I'm not dropping them out of this 5 or anything. They're number 2. They are the team to beat. They're the reigning champions. They are a complete team, a legit team. They have their weapons. They've got guys off the bench. They know their roles. But it hasn't all clicked perfectly yet this year. And Jaylen Brown seems to be regressing just ever so slightly. And it's just something to monitor, just something to keep an eye on. And number 1, and the reason I say this, it honestly, I think 5 days ago, I would have flipped this. But I watched Chet Holmgren return the other night. And I watch Oklahoma City play every game they play. And I tweeted about this from Subway Sports Talk. Any tweet that's Oklahoma City related is coming from me. What he brings to a team that was already 41-9 is ridiculous to add on both sides of the floor, because the concern with them was their half-court offense. What are they going to do when it's non-SGA minutes and when it's non-SGA initiated offense? Like sometimes Jalen Williams can look a little shaky. Chet provides that extra option and provides that second-tier group without SGA. It rounds it out so well to have like Hartenstein, Chet, Isaiah Joe, Alex Caruso, Jalen Williams. You now got all these options. But I somehow forgot what a rim protector he is. He has 4 blocks tonight, Pete. I took him 3+. I took him 2+. See if the other legs of the parlay hit. What he brings defensively to a historically good defensive team is really hard to understate, because they actually were missing rim protection. Their wings were just that good. He brings that back. He brings another rebounder. I got Oklahoma City at 1. They just make the most sense. They've played like it. They're 42-9 for a reason. So there you go. There's my 5. Long answer.
A good answer. I'll tell you if I agree in a second, but before I do, Cody, how do you think your list compares to the list of Vegas odds and, the actual championship odds? Do you think you got it verbatim?
I think the Lakers are probably inside of that top 5. If they're not, they're 6. And some of that is they legit deserve to be there. Some of that is they're a team that is going to be bet on, and Vegas and DraftKings and them all know about it.
Well, let me tell you this. You're not exactly right. You're close.
Dang, that was pretty good.
According to Vegas right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder are 1, the Celtics are 2, so you're spot on there. You jump down to Cleveland at 3, the Knicks at 4, and then Denver 5, Lakers 6. So you were very close. So your big change was that you have Denver above both Cleveland and New York. Are you okay with that after seeing the odds?
Yeah, I think if I'm looking, 15-1 Denver is just such good value when you have the best player in the world.
So, yeah, I think so, too. And I can tell you this because I looked at these odds last week before the Celtics game. The Knicks were plus 800. So after the Knicks got shellacked by Boston, those odds jumped down to plus 1,000. And the Lakers were moving up already, but they've moved up more since, which means there's action coming in on the Lakers, I'm assuming. They were about 2,000. Now they're up to plus 1,700.
Can I hit you back with a question here?
Of course.
Outside of that top 6, is there anyone that you see that you think, hey, this is worth throwing the 5 to 10 on? I can actually see them pulling this off, or is it just the top 6 to you?
To me, the only one I would consider throwing money on after that is number 7, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. When you have Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team and he's healthy in the playoffs, they're a different beast. Straight up. It's very easy for all of us to forget that Giannis has been hurt 2 playoffs in a row. The only reason the Jimmy Butler Heat culture BS that happened and they made the finals is because everyone got injured against them, right? Like Giannis was out in game 2 and the Heat, ran away with the series. Giannis is a different beast. I think what they did at the break, getting Kyle Kuzma, I'm a little bit more positive on than most. I think people are really underselling him. And I know he's been bad for a couple of years now, and he hasn't been a good role player since he's been in LA 5 years ago. Crazy that it's been that long. But I think Kyle Kuzma gets in line with a team like this. I think you go from playing a style in Washington where nothing matters. Kyle, you're our lead guy. Go ahead, shoot, knock yourself out. To now being like, oh, I'm with Giannis and Dame. I'm a spot up. I'm a cut.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna play harder. I'm gonna play defense, and he's gonna be better than Chris Middleton, which pains me to say because I've loved Chris Middleton for so long. But dude's cooked. His legs are not there. They're gone. So I like the Bucks as a flyer team, not like massive odds. Plus 3,000 is still pretty good, obviously. But yeah, I think you got to take the Bucks very seriously if you're an Eastern Conference team in the playoffs, as long as Giannis is healthy.
Yeah, I think Kuzma definitely brings a more of a defensive-minded approach to than Middleton was going to, and Milwaukee desperately needs a little bit more defense. He's not an all-world defender, but he's obviously a far upgrade from what Middleton is defensively at this part of his career. Anything with Golden State adding Jimmy, do you give them any type of chance?
Nope. Never mind. We're good.
Memphis, Houston, Dallas.
No, I'm good. I mean, I'm surprised the Clippers are equal to the Bucks in Memphis. I know Kawhi's back and stuff. They've been playing decent ball. I don't see it with the Clippers. I don't see it with the Warriors. I definitely don't see it with Dallas. I think Houston's a year away, maybe 2 years away.
Minnesota?
No, I don't see it. I think Minnesota could be a team that could sneak up on somebody, not sneak up because everyone knows who they are, but can definitely upset somebody in the playoffs for sure. I don't see them winning multiple rounds in a row. I just don't think they have the balance they used to have. They're going to be a pain in the ass to play in the playoffs, but they're not going to be a 3-round winner, in my opinion. I think if you really want to get frisky and you want to be insane, like you look down the line there and you, I hate to say this, but you look at Philly and you say, hey, listen, plus 10,000 odds for Philly to, I don't think they're not winning the championship. Let's be freaking real here for a second. But like, I think that the Sixers can cause disruption in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers can beat the Cavs. They can beat the Knicks. They can beat the Bucks in a series. And the Celtics, I think, are on a slightly different level.
I guess in the sense of if say the Knicks, leapt into the 2 seed and the Sixers get into the play-in and you're like, damn, now we got to play them in round 1. You'd be like, that kind of sucks, like a healthy Sixers. I think the Knicks would beat them, no problem, though. I
think they would, too.
Honestly, I don't think the Sixers are – I think there's a chance that they don't even make the play-in. I think if they do, whatever, I just don't – they don't make sense nightly. They just don't. But they never play –
Maxey's playing really good ball.
He's fantastic, dude. I've watched a decent amount of Sixers, actually, for some odd reason. And Maxey he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But he's not enough. He's one guy, and he's an undersized guy. Like, he's an amazing offensive player, but once you start keying in on him, Paul George is a shell of himself. He's provided nothing there. It's so funny how badly they needed and wanted Tobias Harris out, and they paid for worse Tobias Harris. It's unbelievable right now. Like, that franchise is ridiculous. But hey, they don't. Sixers fans, Philly fans, they don't give a damn about that.
Yeah, not right now. And I don't think there's really anyone else. Like, I don't think there's another team that I'm really scared of. As a Knicks fan, if I was a Cavs fan or Boston fan, like, yeah, you get nervous, but I think the Bucks are the biggest non-top 5
Indiana,
team.
Anything?
They're frisky
Went to
as
the
hell,
conference final last year. Like,
the Knicks and Pacers play on Tuesday night. I think it's a good game. I think it's a good matchup.
Mm-hmm.
They're a good team, but I don't think they've been nearly as consistent enough this year. I do think they benefited last year from the Knicks obviously not being healthy. Like, that series went 7 without Mitchell Robinson, without Julius Randle, and mostly without OG Anunoby and a banged up Brunson. And it went 7. So if we're being honest here, the Knicks are better than they were last year. The Knicks are a better team than the Pacers, and I think that if health was not a factor, they would win this series. I do think so.
Agreed.
So yeah, I don't think they're a major threat, but they're frisky.
Orlando dropping down though the way they have, which is so bizarre because they finally got like Paulo back and they started to get a little healthy, and they've been pretty much bad since then.
Suggs has been out, and then
I can't say I've watched a lot of Orlando.
Franz is out still.
I know he's still out, but they got Paulo back and they had next to nobody, and then since they gotten him back, they just haven't figured it out. But they'd still be like damn, we got to play these guys because they just play so hard, not like
They
we're
just
afraid
can't.
they're going to beat us.
I just don't trust their offense late in games.
Right.
That's their problem.
Yeah.
That's their big
kind
thing.
of not exactly Houston, because I think Houston's got more athleticism and more ability to score, more ways to score than they do.
Yeah.
But similar breath where it's like, I just don't think Houston's ready yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm kind of praying that Denver jumps Houston in the standings, because what I don't want, honestly, just from a selfish basketball standpoint, I don't want to see Denver Lakers in the first round. I want to see that later.
I love that to be a second round matchup, though, to avoid both.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need
that.
to see Jokic knock out LeBron and Luka, or Luka and LeBron knock out Jokic. I don't want to see that. I'd much rather both of those teams make it to the second round. And I think that's very possible that Denver will jump Houston over time, but it's going to be tough because Houston's a really good regular season team. They've actually lost 4 in a row and still have a half game lead on Denver. So it's tough. But I think at the end of the day, the exercise we just did, to me, it kind of shows us that the Knicks are in this conversation for a reason, right? It's not just us being Knicks fans here in New York saying that we're better than we are. No, this is legitimate. This is Las Vegas odds. This is sportsbook odds. Put in the Knicks top 4 right now by a decent margin, if we're being honest, right? Like from plus 1,000 to plus 1,500 is the tier jump right there. The first tier is Thunder, Boston. Put in whatever order you want. I'd probably put Boston ahead of Oklahoma City just because they've done it before. And that's the only reason, right? That's the only reason, because I think otherwise they're incredibly equal, if not Thunder a little bit better from a depth perspective. And then Cleveland and New York. I would hear the argument for the Knicks being above Cleveland, but I'm perfectly okay putting Cleveland above the Knicks in the contender title right now. And I'd probably put Boston Thunder, Cavs, Denver, Knicks is my top 5.
Cavs 3.
Yeah, I put Cavs 3, Denver 4, Knicks 5. Just giving some respect to Cleveland and how dominant they've been this year, because they've been incredible.
Yeah, no, they have. Their offense is loaded, like completely loaded. And again, the DeAndre Hunter move is a really nice one for them. So they have to be taken seriously.
I will add this, though. If the Lakers look really good, right?
Tonight
in an hour and a half from now, and then for the next 2 weeks after the All-Star break, if Luka and LeBron makes a lot of sense together and they're rattling off wins, this might be the best odds you get the Lakers at. Plus 1,700. I could easily see them going into that 3-4 range on odds up to plus 1,000 or down to plus 1,000.
Can I offer some advice to you or really anyone here?
Yeah.
Don't overreact to them beating the hell out of the Jazz and looking really good tonight. Give it your All-Star break's coming up. Maybe give it till then. Because I don't know that they might shift, 15, 16 to 1. They shouldn't go crazy, and they might always drop back down. So that's my advice, is don't overreact to just them, because they're going to probably beat the Jazz pretty handedly. They're 12-point favorite or something. Mm-hmm. But give it a little time, even though I'll be excited watching it too. And then pissed off for a second, and then excited.
Yeah, exactly. I think end of February, right?
Yeah.
Hold out all of your thoughts on the Lakers until the end of February, because the break starts, what is it, the 14th? Today's the 10th. So yeah, it starts the 13th.
This Friday?
This Thursday. There's no more games.
God, this week is going to suck. Hockey's off for 2 weeks too, because they have the four nations face off. I know you're a big hockey guy. You're probably very into that. It's Finland, Sweden, USA, and Canada. So it's a good excuse for me to turn on Miracle and watch Kurt Brooks do his thing.
There you go.
Herb Brooks, rather. Kurt Russell is the actor. Herb Brooks is the coach. I kind of combined them there. One of my all-time favorite sports movies. So good excuse to watch that.
Gives me an excuse to lock in on Captain America: Brave New World this weekend.
See, everyone's got something.
There you go. So yeah, that's good. Good stuff, Cody O'Connor. That's fantastic. Subway Sports Talk, as always. Any last words for the podcast? Oh, yeah. I forgot to ask you this. You're wearing your Mets hat?
Metropolis.
Cody O'Connor, the New York Mets.
Yeah.
What are we thinking? Pete Alonso's back. You have thoughts?
Of course. I try to keep it brief because I have so many thoughts. The first thing that comes to mind is I love you, David Stearns. for Mets fans, the mostly like the ones you see on Twitter or the ones that call in the fan, or maybe even some hosts. And I'm not even saying that for real, like not like I know of any, just in general, Geico Sports Night, whoever, maybe we should relax and let David Stearns cook and do his job because he's a really smart guy and he's smarter than us and he knows more than us. So he waited this out so well. Scott Boras, I think, has become a clown. I can't stand what he's been trying to do. And I love that not just David Stearns, but a lot of GMs seemingly are saying, you know what, you're asking for an unreasonable amount and we're not going to give that to you. And it's been happening and he's costing his players. And I hope they continue to do it so that Boris can get in line or these guys can hire a different agent and it can be a little bit more reasonable. But I just love that David Stearns waited this out. The contract is so Mets friendly where it keeps the door open for Vladdy. I think you might have said this, but that's exactly what it does, is it keeps the opportunity for Vladdy. If Pete happens to opt in after year one, that means he was probably bad this year, which is not a good thing. If he opts out, again, that probably means that he's seeking that longer-term deal. It likely is elsewhere, but we get to look at Pete in a nice sense. His first free agency, he did stick with us. He'll likely break the Mets home run record this summer at some point, but it legitimizes the lineup. It adds more depth. It provides more protection for a guy like Vientos, for a guy like Soto. It allows some of the pressure to come off our guy like Francisco Alvarez. I was looking at home run props today, Pete, because you fired me up with Uncle Al and that show on YouTube. Can you shout it out, the name I'm forgetting? Is it T.O. Al and Friends?
Yeah, T.O. Al and Friends, 8 p.m. Uptown Sports TV on YouTube every Thursday.
I was jacked up to hear a shout out because I hear you talking about Alvarez. I'm like, that's my guy. And he's like, shout out Cody O'Connor, you. And I'm like, all right, yeah. Because I loved him last year. I'm going to love him again this year. The books already have him at like 25 homers. But can I ask you what you think Mark Vientos home runs are at?
It's going to be 28.5.
Dude, I saw 35 plus at minus 115 on DraftKings. 35. I couldn't believe that. Like a number I certainly won't touch unless I'm going under. But that's how much respect he's getting. And I wonder if that has anything to do with you've got to pitch to him and you've got to pitch to these guys. And that's what Pete brings. And so I'm so thrilled with the signing. I'm thrilled because Stearns waited it out so perfectly and patiently. And we've got a ball club. So I'm super excited about the season. They just have made good moves, and it's so refreshing to watch the Mets front office, however this works out, to watch them move the way that they have and make good decisions and make rational decisions and not overreact to what fans are tweeting and talking about on the fan. Couldn't have been happier with that.
Cody, when you see like an SGA points line and it's like 38.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, that's so ridiculous. I have to take the over now.
Well, can I tell you, I took the under one night. He had 32 at half.
Yeah.
It was like 38 and a half. And I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. They're going to blow this team out. He had 32 at half.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So like when I see an SGA line and it's like 37.5, 38.5, I'm like, that's so crazy that I now have to take the over. Like they're trying to find a way to stop you from betting SGA overs because they hit every night. That they're almost forcing you to take the under. So I take the over, which is what I might do with Mark Vientos.
I've got to make sure I'm 100% correct about this because even saying it again,
35 is a massive season for a guy who's only played 3/4 of an MLB year.
35 plus home runs, Mark Vientos on DraftKings minus 115. Juan Soto minus 135 for the same number. And I thought, how I knew it was inflated stuff?
40 this year.
I thought I would get a really good number on Alvarez, which is what I went in to go look for. So I looked at 20 plus, and it was like minus 175, minus 175 for Alvarez to get to 20.
Yeah,
last year he was 21 and a half, and I know because I put a lot of money on it.
60 games.
Yeah, he did get hurt, and so I think they think injury, bounce back, all that. But those are some big numbers. I mean, I think they're too big.
Those are too big. I'm taking the over.
Love it.
That's too high. I'm taking the over. Cody O'Connor, thank you as always. This has been a blast. What a great podcast for everybody right here on Subway Sports Talk, on your podcast app, on YouTube. Hit us on socials at Subway Sports Talk. Appreciate all the interaction we get on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube shorts and YouTube videos, the whole nine. So thank y'all for listening. We appreciate you as always. And shout out to Cody as well. We'll talk to y'all soon. Cheers.